Welcome to the Nairobi Health Show. This is Dave Sherwin with Angela Foster. Angela, welcome to the show today.
Thanks, Dave. I'm really happy to be here.
It's taken us a couple months to coordinate our schedules and make this happen, and we're in different time zones. You're in the UK, right?
I am in England, just outside of London.
Okay, and so I'm excited to finally make this happen. And I've got a few different ideas I want to run by you as a coach. And first of all, I'd like to just read your bio so people watching and listening can understand more about who you are. Angela is a nutritional therapist and health performance coach and host of the High Performance Health podcast. She's a former partner in a large law firm who left the world of corporate law after suffering burnout and recovering from a serious illness in 2014. She is a mother of 3 young children and is on a mission to inspire and educate others on how to stay healthy and energized. So, Angela, you've been doing a great job of that. You've got your podcast. And how many episodes have you done now?
About 130, I think, Dave. I'm not sure how many you've done, but I'm on my way. I know many people have done like 300 episodes. But for me, about 130 or 140, I think, so far.
Yeah, I'm in the hundreds too. I think we're about to publish like 187 or something like that. But I understand most podcasts only last 3 to 5 episodes, and the podcast host is like, "No, this sucks. Too much work." Yeah. There's like it's kind of like that old stat of how many businesses fail, right? People set out to start a business, and like 10% of businesses are still around 5 years later. There's similar stats for podcasts, and yet I bet, like me, you found like after like 20 and 30 and 40, and as I keep building up, one of the things I found, Angela, is that the tips and the things I learned, it's like free coaching for me.
Yeah, totally. Free coaching and also making great connections, right? The people I've met are amazing, and I've made great friends through my podcasting as well.
Yeah, and in doing over 100, that's kind of where I want to start, Angela, is you've interviewed over 100 experts in health and fitness. And give us a quick idea of the scope of your show. What are kind of the main areas that you touch on?
So everything to do with health optimization, really, with the lens of performance, right? So all about my concept of high performance health is about longevity in business and life. So any area that will impact your longevity, whether that is in your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health, your social health, or in your financial health, really, we cover. So it's all about increasing performance. And so we have people on the show ranging from hormone experts right through to biohackers, through to people that specialize in brain health and different biohacking technologies for nutrition, sleep, and all aspects, really, so that you've got total human optimization.
Interesting. I'm so glad I asked you that question because, of course, the word performance means so many things to so many different people. Like, for example, if I think high performance, I might think of someone who trains Olympians or something. And so I think, well, I'm too old for that. My days of trying out for the Olympics or any type of games are over, unless it's like in my age range, right?
Yeah.
And so I like your definition because it makes it sound like it's really for anyone, whatever stage you're at, to perform better.
Yeah.
So it's broad.
Yeah. It is a broad definition, and really it's because I think everyone has a different goal, and there are seasons in life. So at different stages, we're going to be wanting different things. In my 30s, I was very much focused on my family, and that was a huge goal, to be, an energetic mom and be fun and adventurous with my kids, and that's still there. But as they've grown into teenagers and adolescents, I've been able to focus on myself a little more and my career. And so then again, as an entrepreneur, I've needed great energy and output. And I think what I found was in my former profession as a lawyer, I was really burnt out. So as a London lawyer, we completely disrespected sleep. And that led to me working all nights, weekends. I was really, really tired. And that took an impact on my mental and physical health. And so when I had, I suffered terribly with postpartum depression, which then led to burnout and hospitalization, actually, with pneumonia. So I was really trying, to get my health back on track. And when I did that, I was in a fortunate situation. My husband was an investment banker. He was earning well. I could really just focus on my physical health. But then it struck me that I'd kind of done both things, right? I'd achieved high performance. I'd made partnership in a large law firm when I was 8 months pregnant. But then I burnt myself out. Then I focused on my physical and mental and spiritual health, and I was getting great results. But I wasn't really working. I'd taken a sabbatical. And so then it dawned on me, there must be a way that we can combine these, really, because how do we achieve that longevity, both in our business, in our professions, and in our life? I went on a quest, really, which started as self-discovery, requalifying, and then helping lots of clients. And I realized over time that actually, if you do want longevity, then your health is the foundation of that in business as much as anything else, because you don't have the capacity to stay at it long term unless you have that mind, body, spirit optimization. And that's how this concept of high performance health was really born. And it was the meeting of those two worlds.
Mind, body, spirit optimization. I like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the mental part is when let's start there,
Okay.
because it's one that I think we take for granted. Like for example, if I put on 25 pounds over 3 or 4 years by just being too lax in my personal program, and then one day I think, I used to be fit and now I've put on 25 pounds. I haven't been exercising as much. I'm going to make a change. And that's a change we can see in the mirror, and both the improvement and the putting on the weight is something that's kind of obvious. We can see our body, right? But our mind, I think many people do not stop to ever consider if they've put on 25 pounds in their brain somehow, like what the equivalent of that would be of just letting themselves go, maybe not like, so we understand how to put together a fitness plan or change our diet to improve our body. But the brain, we maybe take for granted. We maybe just think, well, this is how it is. This is how I think.
Yeah.
And so
it's true. It's a good point.
talk to us about that. Like when you have someone come to you and you're a coach, is this the place you start with mindset, or how do you deliver your coaching? Like, what's your starting point?
I apologize. That's my dog barking in the background. So my starting point actually is really to take a health history from them and to determine where is the highest value place to start. Often that is sleep, and I use a protocol called SHIFT, and sleep is at the beginning, largely because sleep is the one thing that makes everything else a bit easier, whether that's your physical health optimization or your mental health. And it has a profound effect. And I think that was what really set the stage for me in terms of the burnout that was to come. But with your mental health, you make a very good point. And I think it's not just about the mindset piece, but also understanding that, the universe loves a vacuum, doesn't it? So it doesn't like a vacuum, sorry. So it will fill it at whatever circumstance. So if you have, an empty space, it's going to fill a bad habit. If there's something in nature and there's an empty space, it's going to grow weeds unless you deliberately plant flowers. And I think it's the same with the brain. And I think there's two components. If we're not really managing our thoughts and our expectations and controlling what we want to think and actually programming our subconscious mind and taking mastery of that, we're going to end up with results that we didn't expect or anticipate. And then we can't understand why. It's like, why is life playing out for me this way? And if we haven't looked at our thoughts and our mindset, it's very hard to course correct and understand. So there's that component. But then there's also the brain itself, right? So we have the mind and we have the brain. And similarly with the brain, if we're not cleaning it out regularly by proper sleep, which actually involves a system called lymphatic drainage, which is like the lymphatic system, but for the brain. It removes tau proteins. It removes the buildup of amyloid plaque. We need REM level of sleep, sufficient levels of REM sleep to help with emotional regulation, not just deep sleep. We need to focus on that REM. And if we're not focusing on these components, which I think is a really overlooked area of health, then actually we can find that we're not performing at our best, because everything is controlled by our mind and our brain. And it's such an important part of health and of results that I think a lot of people overlook.
Okay. And that's really interesting about the REM sleep. And we're discovering that the brain, doesn't fully flush and cleanse itself and get rid of those toxins without that. And let's put that aside for a minute though, just because I've had a lot of sleep experts on my show and some even recently. So I totally buy in with your point of sleep and that it kind of is the best place to start. And I love how you said it makes everything easier. But let's pivot a little bit back to the brain health part of it. So if we immediately accept that sleep is critical to our brain health, let's talk about conscious activities. So when you wake up in the morning, what is there some sort of a regimen or plan, or what are some of the top things that you're recommending to people for their mental health?
So there's a few things that I do believe. I'm a big believer in a morning routine. And it was something that really helped me get back on track, because ultimately I was in a position where, it started as postpartum depression. It was after each one of my children, it got successively worse, because we create these neural pathways and they become, I think for anyone listening to this conversation, if you imagine that every time you repeat a thought, it makes it easier. It's like being in a field of long grass. And, when lots of people have worn that path before you, it's trampled down. And now it's just maybe hardened mud. It's easy to walk along. And there's long grass elsewhere. And to create a new neural pattern, you've actually got to let the grass grow on the path that you kept treading and forge a new path. And that's very difficult to do. And without conscious behavior and habits, it's a difficult thing to do, and without actually coming into yourself. And so I had to go inwards. And at first, to be honest, when you're depressed and you have so much shame and guilt and self-loathing and you're wanting to end your life, it's very, very difficult to turn inwards. At that point, actually, the starting point was, cognitive behavioral therapy, actually just being able to physically separate myself from my thoughts and realize I am not my thoughts and they are not me, and try to understand what was happening there and was there an alternative I could replace it with. But as I was able to do that, I then wanted to be more conscious in the way I live my life, to live life more on purpose. And that's I've developed through meditation and gratitude. And those are the things that I encourage people to do in the morning. And it doesn't have to be that it's the same routine you religiously perform, because sometimes you need to speed things up. You're in a rush. Sometimes actually it's just that you maybe need to move your body. Maybe you're really stressed. And the only way that you're really going to connect with yourself on that day is by doing something physical like yoga, which connects the breath and is meditative, but in a movement, or a walking meditation. Whereas other times you can sit in peace and find that quiet space. But I think whatever it is, we have to find a way of finding that alone time with ourselves on a daily basis. And for me, one of the hardest things to correct is that when you are in a state of clinical depression, and I was on very strong bipolar medication, despite all of that and being propped up with it, your thoughts are so negative, you have to course correct. And so I had to replace them with something more positive. And I think understanding that you may be wired when you wake up to believe in negativity, to think, to pull the duvet over your head, to think, I don't want to get out of bed today. But it's your responsibility, because no one's coming, right? It's your responsibility to reprogram your mind. And that's something I've had to work very, very hard at. And I have done over time. And that is, I was told I would be on bipolar meds for the rest of my life, and or episodes of mania and things like that. And actually, I've been 3 years now, coming up to 3 years free of medication. But it was a journey and it was a process. But what I found is that my performance improves the more I focus on these habits and behaviors. And that's the kind of stuff that I work on from a mindset perspective, in part with my clients.
One of the things you said that I find really fascinating, and I'm a meditator. I'm 6 years now into a daily practice, and been on retreats, and it's an area I'm really passionate about. And like you, my story is very different than your story, and yet I was still at a very, very low point in my life when I started my practice of meditation. And it did help me pull through, and it's become one of the most meaningful things that I do. So our stories are somewhat different, but the path is similar. And one of the things I've learned is that the thought of controlling thoughts, I hear so many people say, oh, I tried meditation, but I just can't turn off my mind. And there's an assumption there that we can stop our thoughts, or that a really great meditator sits in this condition of perfect bliss and harmony, and that the thoughts just stop coming in. One of the most liberating things that happened for me was the discovery from good teachers that you alluded to it earlier. It's the identification with thought is the actual real problem. Like when we stop and we sit, thoughts come, and it's almost impossible to turn off those thoughts. And of course, thoughts aren't bad, and we need our brain to work through problems and to be consciously thinking of things. But if we try to stop and just not think, it's not going to happen.
Mm.
But the identification with those negative thoughts, you talk about that person that wakes up in the morning feeling depressed, wants to pull the duvet over their head, the thoughts are coming. And to me, that was the most liberating thing I discovered early on, was the power of disassociating, being able to just not necessarily power through, but just create that separation between those thoughts and their effect on me, and realizing there was a me that was experiencing the thoughts. That was really profound. Is that
Mm.
similar to experiences you had along the way?
Yeah, very, very much so. Very profound. And I think, with thoughts, we have to remember that when we're meditating, our job is not to be the bouncer at the party, right? It's not for us to decide which
Right.
thought is suitable, what's coming in, what isn't, but merely just to allow them to think of ourselves as a guest, really, and to allow them to come in and out, because they're like buses, right? Another one's coming along in a minute, and another one, and another one.
Right.
We want to try to gain control. And I think the more that you can just allow them to come in and out, I don't know if you've noticed this, Dave, but the more emotional mastery you have in other areas of your life and during the course of your day, because you respond now instead of reacting, because you're not so reactionary, because you're training yourself on a daily basis not to react. As soon as you latch onto a thought and you attach an emotion to it, that's when it charges. It's not charged before until we give it energy. And so
Right.
if we don't latch onto that thought, right, we're becoming much better at responding, much more controlled. And there's a gap, isn't there? And I had to really learn that. And it's very small. And I like to compare it to when you're playing a game of tennis and the ball's coming the other side. If you get really stressed, it can feel like the balls are coming thick and fast and you're not going to make the shot. But actually, if you slow it down, it's so much more elegant, and there is a space, and it comes much slower, and you can almost slow down time. And I think really that's what we're doing with meditation with our brains, is we're working on that. And it's a daily practice, and you get stronger and you get better. And I'm in no ways perfect. I'm on my journey like everyone else. But there is tremendous value in it if you can do it. And I think if your expectations are lower, where you're not expecting to be like a Buddhist monk, right? We're not monks. We're doing this for performance. We're doing this to get better, to show up as our best selves. Then actually a meditation will give you value. And one of the things I found is Vedic style of meditation I find better. I've done a lot of guided meditations. I find that for me personally, being guided doesn't feel like a meditation. That's more of a visualization. And I think it can be great for understanding who you are, who you want to become. Dr. Joe Dispenza has a great morning 20-minute meditation where you leave behind who you don't want to be and you become this new person. And that's great when you're looking at goals and you're setting a new sense of self. And I think there are periods across the year that you want to come back to that type of meditation. But ultimately, sitting in silence, for me, there's no substitute.
Yeah, for me, I've been all over the map, and I still have multiple resources. And there's some guided meditations for me that are very, very different than others. I really like David G's course, JI, on Insight Timer, and yet I'll do those maybe 10 to 20 times in the course of a year. I'll just feel like a David G, and it's more of a spiritually uplifting type of a thing, and it's almost religious in nature. It's not really, but it's you'd have to listen to it to understand. But he's got this great vibe that I just feel is uplifting, and I use it sometimes. My daily meditation is typically Sam Harris. Sam Harris comes more from the neuroscience side and brain health, and it's more of a in Buddhism they would call it more of a Dzogchen, or where you don't really have a focus necessarily. It's more based on eliminating the subject-object paradox that we all tend to live with all the time. And his daily, I really like. And other times I'm just sitting, and other times I'm walking. And I found, and through retreats, where they train you on various types of meditation, that's been helpful for me too. And so I found that the mix and kind of going with what I want that day. Other times, Angela, like you, I'm an entrepreneur. And there's some times where my meditation is more of things are going on in my business, or there's just something big going on in my life as far as a project or something, where I just take my pen and paper and I just sit for 20 minutes, just capturing everything going on, writing things down. It's more of a planning session. And yet for me, it's meditative because there's so much going on. It could be overwhelming. And to just unwind it and write about it and capture it and do like a brain dump gives me that same, it's just what I need that day.
Yeah, so powerful.
But the thing is, as I listen to you and as you explain that, I think the takeaway for listeners is that there's probably not a one size fits all. The underlying premise is to take the time to sit and then to find that way, whether guided, unguided, with pen and paper. Many people are religious, of course, so prayer, some form of prayer. There's many ways to sit and do that exercise, and probably experimenting with several is a great way to start. Now, is there certain methodologies that you really like or that you teach? Like, what do you teach to other people as far as getting started?
In terms of meditation, or what?
Yeah, in terms of morning routine. Let's put in the context of a morning routine. When you mentioned a morning routine, I'd like to dive into that a little bit more. And you mentioned meditation and gratitude.
Yeah, so I think a morning routine, and I think, actually Hal Elrod as an author covers this pretty well with his savers. But I think that the more that we can focus on the spiritual side, so we were really, in my view, the morning routine, the first hour of the day should be for you. That's what it should be. And if you've got to compress it to a shorter time, you're traveling or something, then fine. You're really busy, you're getting something out, that's fine. But for the most part across the year, that first hour is for you. And you want to actually dedicate that hour to what I was speaking about, the mental, physical, and spiritual optimization. So the gratitude and the meditation lends itself to that spiritual practice. And I truly believe that what we are grateful for appreciates in life. And so the more energy we can put out, the better. And then I have a different routine that I use in the morning, but in the evening, but in the morning, I look at what I'm grateful for. I then believe very much in looking after your physical health. And with that, we don't want to elevate cortisol too high at this time of the morning. So going out and crushing a massive HIIT workout when cortisol's already high probably isn't the best time of day. Now, if it's the only time of day you can do it, then okay, fine, you're going to need to do it. But ideally, you want to do something a little bit more gentle, particularly for women who are pre-menopause. They're in their cycling years, their hormones, they're on this 28-day infradian rhythm. So doing something gentle, but getting the body moving, getting the blood flow to the body and the brain, with 10 minutes of yoga. It could be going on a stationary bike. It could be a sauna, something like that. Some flexibility, some foam rolling really, really helps to wake the body up. And you'll notice that helps your brain as well. And then having a glass of water first. I like to have some trace minerals in it because we lose some moisture overnight. And that really helps as a nootropic in itself in terms of brain function. And then for me personally, I'll have black coffee. So I'm a big proponent of fasting for a minimum of 12 to 14 hours a day for women. And for men, often can go quite a bit longer. And then I will kind of sit down and plan my day. I'll read generally on something. It's the only time of day that I know I can read. In the evening, I probably will fall asleep quite quickly. In the morning, I'm fresh and I can dedicate either to something that I'm, reading spiritually or that's in alignment with the work that I do. And because I'm so broad in terms of this mind, body, spirit optimization, I'm just an avid reader. And so I will spend at least 30 minutes to 45 minutes just reading in the morning. Sometimes that's books, sometimes it's scientific literature, and also sometimes it's just about working on myself. But I think when you've put in place those habits, right, you've meditated, it can be a short time. It's going to take you a minute. If you haven't got time to write things out for gratitude, you can say, well, when I get out of bed, and this is a great thing to do, is to always habit stack. So there's something, if this, then that, right? You can slot it in. You're going to be much more compliant with it. So when I get out of bed on my way to use the bathroom, I will think about 3 things I'm grateful for. Gratitude's done. If you don't have time, right, it's there. If you can only sit in a minute for silence, sit in a minute for silence, but just find that time. Do some deep breaths. If you can just literally do one sun salutation in the morning, you've moved your body. If you write out, just what you want to aspire, what you want to do today, your MITs, your highest, or your KPIs, your key performing tasks, right? You want to put those out. If you can read even a page, it's better than nothing. I always think start small and just try not to set something that's so unwieldy that it just seems like, oh my God, I can't do that. Start small and then build from there, because motivation comes from action. We always think that it's the other way around, right? That we need to feel motivated to take action. It's not. Action creates motivation, and what's in motion generally stays in motion.
Okay, so you said something there that I loved all of that, except
Except, go on.
let's have a friendly debate about this one. Personally, first of all, you said that a high intensity workout could raise cortisol.
Yeah.
Now, personally, I am a huge fan of HIIT workouts. I don't do them all week long. I have a mixture between strength and recovery and cardio, easy workouts, and yoga mobility stuff. So I mix it up, and I try to exercise every day, but of varying intensities. But in the morning, I feel my best for sure. And when I have a high intensity workout in the morning, it feels really good. I feel like my body's ready for it, and I feel really good after. And so it was interesting to me that I love the aspect of doing some foam rolling yoga. And I actually do quite a long warm up, which is like that. And I really enjoy that. I do 10 to 15 minutes of warm up, including the foam roller and a lacrosse ball and that type of thing. And easy movements. But you're recommending to not do high intensity workouts in the morning? And if not, when would someone do those? Because we do know the exercise scientists are telling us high intensity workouts do give us the biggest bang for the buck as far as weight loss, general health, etc. So talk to us about that. If not in the morning, when, and how do you work that in?
So it's a little bit more nuanced than that, because you're right. High intensity workouts per se are amazing. You don't want to do them too often, and you don't want to do them for too long. And for women and men, the requirements a little bit like fasting are very, very different. So men operate on a circadian rhythm. They wake up with testosterone really high. That's why teenage boys tend to wake up in a certain way, and testosterone is really high, and they're highly motivated, and they can get things done. And then across the course of the day, it kind of goes down. So they're super productive in the morning. However, we all have a cortisol rhythm, right? As melatonin is waning, cortisol is going up. And particularly for women, if we have too high a cortisol, it can disrupt female sex hormones. So I think we have to be a little bit more careful, but the duration also plays a part. So if you have somebody you've got to look at the stress that's going on in their life. And as I say, there's seasons in life and where they are in terms of their menstrual cycle as a woman, or for a man and a woman, which stage of life they're at. Now, if they're doing a really high intensity workout first thing in the morning, and they've got an incredibly stressful job, they may have been woken up by young children, we're just adding to this stress bucket, and stress is already high. Now, over time, what will happen is that your body compensates, and so it will produce another pro-anabolic hormone called DHEA to match those levels of cortisol. But what I see on people's lab reports over time is what can happen is that if they can no longer match the demands of this relentless output, then what we see is cortisol starts to rise, and either the body will start to downregulate how much is freely available. So now the free cortisol is so low, they feel like they can't get out of bed, or their DHEA output cannot keep up with it. And so they're in a more catabolic state. And this can later down the road lead to symptoms of burnout. It can be hard to turn that ship around. It can lead to blood sugar dysregulation. So I think that we always want to be, I think the yogis have it right, the yin and the yang. So if you've balanced out your week with some foam rolling, some mobility, some yoga, some maybe zone 2 low intensity cardio, then you're not doing HIIT workouts every day. If you're not making the HIIT workout super long, so you're keeping it sub 30 minutes, again, that's fine. But I think it's about looking at the individual. And as I say, for some people, it's the only time they're going to be able to exercise. And it has huge metabolic impacts, which is, it will make you hungry. It helps with insulin sensitivity. However, what I would say is if you're going to do it in the morning, then what you want to make sure is that you do then refuel properly. And what's been shown is that if you refuel with protein and carbohydrates, you can moderate that cortisol response that's happening for 48 hours or so afterwards. So I think it's about understanding. And that's why whenever I talk about health, I talk about bioindividuality, because we are also different. And what works for one person may not work for another. You know, if you're getting up and you're doing a high intensity workout and you've had a meal in the evening that contains carbs and your glycogen is replete, you're going to perform really well in a fasted state. However, if you haven't and you've been, you know, fasting most of that day, or you just had a really light meal, you may find that you're more depleted. And it just really depends on the individual's own metabolism, their stress levels, etc. But for women who are in their cycling years, it's a little bit more complex. And certainly in the late luteal phase, those kind of workouts can be quite catabolic. So ideally, you would keep those workouts short and you would do them a little bit later in the morning and just have a bit more of a runway into it.
I understand there's an excellent app, and maybe I've been led astray because I have searched and searched, but someone told me on another podcast that there's an app for women that helps them understand how to adjust their fasting throughout the cycle, and also gives them some of these ideas of when to do which type of workout. And I have looked and looked and looked, because like you said, men are on a 24-hour hormonal cycle throughout their entire life, right? Just the same. Every 24 hours, the same cycle. And women are on a 28 to 31 day cycle. And during that cycle, I understand that fasting should be adapted somewhat, and exercise and carb intake. And I've had women ask me this, and I do coaching, and I have women all the time. And most of the people who want my coaching are women. Do you have a good answer? Do you have like an app or a resource or some way that women could better get in tune with the cycle and how they should be exercising, eating / fasting during the cycle?
Yeah, I do. There are a couple of apps actually, and I interviewed both of these people on my show. So there is Elisa Vitti, who has the app In the Flow, and you can track your menstrual cycle, and she has workouts broken down week by week according to where you are in your cycle. However,
I'm going to write this down.
So this is In the Flow, which is FLO. What I would say, and I think just to be conscious of, is you always want to be looking at your goals. So if your goal is just overall health and wellness, and you're going to rotate those workouts where, you know, 1 week of the month you're doing more flexibility, another week you're doing more strength, another week you're doing some high intensity, and another week it's more kind of yoga, Pilates. That's all fine for just an overall wellness goal. But if you have a goal, for example, of gaining muscle mass, you're not going to gain muscle mass by strength training for 1 to 2 weeks out of 4, right? There's got to be consistent and progressive overload. So I would always say, again, bring it back to your goals and adapt around it. For most women, the last week of the month is the time that we really want to focus on that progesterone production. And so it's in that late luteal phase that avoiding high intensity workouts is going to be better. So maybe you pare it back. You're not quite so heavy with the strength. You slow it down. In their menstruating phase, actually the hormones have all dropped. You're most like a man, funnily enough, in that phase. And a lot of women have amazing energy. Another app that can help them do this is called Wild AI. And that, again, I interviewed the founder of Wild AI on my show. They've developed
We have a connection issue, Angela. Hold on 1 minute. Okay, Angela, we lost you when you said that you interviewed the creator of Wild AI. Let's see if we can hear you again.
Wild AI. Wild AI. By her.
Dang.
With her on her Sims, who has the TED Talk, great, and that will again. So there are.
I don't know if you can hear me, but we continue to have a connection issue. And you're on my end, the video is frozen. Are you hearing me okay? Dang. Well, everybody, this happens sometimes temporarily. Oh, we lost Angela. Let's see if she comes back in. I apologize. This is a great conversation that I've been waiting for probably 3 months. So let's see. Angela is back in the stream. Okay. Let's try again. We've got some kind of a somewhere between the in between us, the Atlantic Ocean, maybe somewhere. There's a shark chewing a wire or something. Dang. Still not that
Matt, has
great.
the internet gone?
Oh, Angela, we can hear you now. Okay.
Oh, you can hear me good. Sorry, I was just trying to see if I could sort of connection.
Okay. We missed everything from when you said that you interviewed the founder of Wild AI. So if you could tell us again about that,
Okay.
we could just start right
Yeah,
there.
sure. So Helen Guillaume is the founder of Wild AI. I chatted to her. She's developed an app which actually helps you arrange your training and gives recommendations around your menstrual cycle. Food recommendations. I believe now, I know they were sorting this when I spoke to her, that now that is also linked in with the Aura ring, right? So the ring that I wear here that tracks your sleep, I think, and that obviously shows changes in body temperature, which can show if you've ovulated. And I think they have an open API system now where you can put the two together. So Wild AI is another app that is an opportunity for people to try. The other thing is I recently went on a workshop yesterday with Heads Up Health. There's now a way of integrating that Aura data and hormone test results and things into their system, which I'm looking at now beginning with my own clients. So there are various ways that you can now integrate that information to really optimal in particular.
Fantastic. I'm so glad I asked that question and that you had such good answers. And now I've got a resource I can tell people about. The Aura Ring is interesting. I use an Apple Watch, which I love. It's the best fitness device I've ever had. The only thing that disappoints me about the Apple Watch is kind of the inability really to use it well for sleep, just because that's typically when I'm charging it, right? And so I have been seriously tempted to get the Aura Ring. It feels like a lot of overkill to me to have a smart device on my wrist and one on my finger. But you're a power user of the Aura Ring and advising it to your clients, it sounds like. What are your thoughts on that? You think the Aura Ring is a good addition for most people if they're serious about their health?
I think the Aura Ring is amazing. I really value it. All my clients get the recovery. You can track, whether they're sleeping or the heart rate going down at the right time of the night and coming back up again. We can see the variation between heartbeats, their heart rate variability. I have no affiliation with them at all. In fact, I don't think they affiliate with coaches at all, but I do really, really rate it.
Yeah, they've cut off their affiliate program. They no longer need people to refer their program. I know someone who is selling thousands and thousands of them in their app, and Oura Ring pulled the plug and said, "We're not going to pay you anymore." And so I assume that Oura Ring has pulled their affiliate relations with everybody because they're able to just sell it directly to people. So I do believe it's an excellent product. Well, Angela, unfortunately, our internet connection is not very good, and that happens sometimes, especially with overseas interviews. So I apologize to people listening that we don't have a good internet connection at the moment, but let's try and see if we can get some closing thoughts, Angela, because we didn't even get into nutrition. And let's see if we can just get some of your best advice currently, what you're learning from people that you're coaching on some of the top mistakes maybe people are making in their nutrition and the corrections that you're advising for the most part right now. What are some of the top things you're having to adjust with people in their nutrition?
So I would say the biggest mistake most people make is that they assume that a nutrient or diet plan, I don't really like the word diet, but that something that works for their friend or
Yeah.
partner is going to work for them. And that if they've got results, they should be following it. And then they beat themselves up when they're not getting results. So we're all very different. We have different gut bacteria, the microbiome plays a part, we have different genetics. And I think before embarking on any particular diet, I think you need to look at what you want to achieve. And for me, the king really is to achieve metabolic flexibility. That's going to give you the most diversity. You can eat things, you can transition between burning fats and carbs on demand. It's the most fun. It gives you the most flexibility. So of thinking, what if it is better blood glucose control, lowering inflammation, getting leaner, losing any excess body fat, then developing metabolic flexibility should be your key goal. How you do that really depends on your starting point. So for some people, actually moving in and using the ketogenic diet for a short period of time can be a way to develop metabolic flexibility. For others, fasting will be a good way. There are so many different things, but the diet that I found works the best for the most number of people is generally a moderate to low carbohydrate version of the Mediterranean diet. It has lots of oily fish, healthy proteins, low and anti-inflammatory foods and fats, a high amount of polyphenols, and that seems to work super well for the most number of people. But almost every single client I have, because I run programs for this as well, is they will take a DNA test and actually find out what their genetic predisposition is to carbs and fats so that they can customize their nutrition.
Okay, and we lost you again, but we heard the best part, I think. Well, of course, I don't know what you were just going to say then, but your advice on the diet and that slight modification, moderately lower carb Mediterranean diet sounds excellent. I like it. And Angela, it just looks like our internet connection is just not going to play nicely with us anymore. Can you still hear me? Well, I apologize, everyone. But we have covered the main questions I wanted to ask Angela, and I hope to have her back on the show again in future because she is a real pro. Her podcast is High Performance Health. High Performance Health Podcast, Angela Foster. And so if you Google her, you can find her website. AngelaFosterPerformance.com is her website, actually. And on Instagram, at Angela Foster. Facebook, Angela Foster Performance. And we might be able to have her say the last word for herself. She's coming back on. Well, Angela, I just was telling everyone about where to find you, your websites, your Instagram handle, your Facebook. And if we could keep you for one more segment here, I understand you also have a free analysis that you do with people. What's that called again?
Oh, yes, let me share that. My Instagram actually is Angela S. Foster. Somebody else took Angela Foster before I got it. So it's Angela S. Foster. But if people want to find yeah. If people want to find out where they are in their health right now and take a free interactive questionnaire and get a full personalized report, health check. It's like less than 2 minutes and they can get a personalized report.
Okay, say it one more time. We lost you right when you were going to tell us where we get it. Is it at AngelaFosterPerformance.com?
Sorry, it is yourtotalhealthcheck.com, and they can get a free personalized report.
Yourtotalhealthcheck.com.
Totalhealthcheck.com, yeah. And they can get a free personalized report.
Okay, fantastic. Yourtotalhealthcheck.com. Angela, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm sorry we had some difficulties, but I think for the most part, we got the message and you gave us so many great ideas and so many great tips. And these apps that I've been searching for that I can now give out to women, especially who are asking for specifics regarding fasting and exercise during the cycle is fantastic. So Angela, thank you so much for being on the show. And I
Thank you so
apologize, we
much for
can't
having me
hear
on, and I
you.
apologize
Oh, there we go.
about the connection.
No problem. Thanks so much. And for everyone listening, this is Dave Sherwin wishing you health and success.